Hello, folks. Welcome. You're on the Swivel at the Sports Bar. This is the third season, second episode of the year, and we got this, going through it. See how things are going. Uh, Maybe some of the fellas may come up, maybe they won't. But we're gonna keep going and have a show and talk a little bit of sports, NFL, NBA, a couple other things and questions that I might talk about. But I just wanted to do this live. I remember it's funny. I was doing it on replay, but no, I want to just go live. I just need to get my chops better speaking live into the mic. If you come in here and listen up, just hit the like button, and we'll get going. The football season's really heated up. We got a couple of teams that at the beginning of the year we probably would be really hard pressed to say that they would be doing so bad, and that's the Ravens and the Chiefs. They're probably not going to make the playoffs this year. Neither one of them. And the Chiefs are really profound because they've been such a they've been such a juggernaut over the years. So we're going to get into a little of that. We're going to look at some of the top games coming up, and if you got some thoughts or questions, throw it into the chat or whatever, and we'll go from there. So I'm having some fun with this stuff anyway. Everybody likes to talk sports. He said, well, what's your chops? I just like sports. You don't have to be some asshole, with credentials to talk sports, right? I used to, as much money as I spend in a sports bar, or I used to, I think I can speak about sports anytime I want to. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I don't get the inside information, so everything I say is speculative. So what? That's the way sports is meant to be, right? This is what I think about this particular situation. And as long as I don't accuse anybody of anything, what can you say? Let's just have a conversation. So that's where this is coming from. Uh, so we're just getting ready to go. I got a couple of housekeeping things to talk about, and then that's it. All right. Well, if you come in for a second or for a minute or you want to hang out, just hit the like button. Share this with some friends. Every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, I put on this show. Every so often, my boys come up and we talk. And if not, I just do it by myself. Subscribe to this channel, Unique Sports Talk, and hit the chat. And then if you watch this on replay, put some comments in the replay. So let's just do that, and I'd appreciate it. So let's start with football. Okay, so where do we stand, right? Here's the NFL standings, the current standings. And, do we have a lot of surprises? Well, I think the Patriots are coming back as a surprise. And the fact that, the Bills are looking up at them, they got a big game coming up. The Jags are a real surprise. The Texans are right after them. The Colts lost their quarterback, so they're going to be hard pressed to hang on. But they may still make the playoffs. The Broncos are surprised. And the Steelers and the Ravens. Well, the Steelers need to win that division to get into the playoffs and to probably keep Tomlin's job. And not only do they need to get into the playoffs, they probably have to win at least one of those first round games. In the NFC, the Eagles are not a surprise. The Buccaneers, not really, not a surprise. The Rams and Seahawks might be the surprise there. They're playing very well. And the Bears are a surprise. So, and the Lions look like they might, I don't want to say a step back, but they're 8-5, but they're not they don't seem as hungry as they were a couple of years ago. And the Bears look better than they did in the past. So that's where that's going. All right. So what are the matchups? I like to put together the top 5 matchups, in for the week. And you might have your own top five. If you want to throw it in the chat, if you're here, throw your top five matchups. Well, I'm gonna show you mine. All right. My top five matchups are the Bills and the Patriots. That's number one, right? It's a division game. The Bills need to win uh, if they want to have any chance of overtaking the division. So they need to win that game. Now, if they lose, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be out of the playoffs or anything like that. But their positioning becomes more tenuous, right? Uh, so that's one thing. So from 1 to 7, the Packers and the Broncos, that's cross conference, but they both need to win those games. The Lions and the Rams, the Lions really need that game. The Rams are playing well. The Ravens, if they lose to the Bengals, they're essentially out of the playoffs, right? And when they started 1-5, I had said this a long time ago. I said if they go 1-5, the chances of you getting to the playoffs, even if you're the Ravens, is very slim because you have a real thin edge margin, especially in the AFC. It's a lot of good teams in the AFC. And they're really playing like shit. I think Lamar Jackson has taken a major step backwards. Not that he's not a great quarterback, but you can see him thinking out there. And every time he's supposed to run, you can see the hesitation where he used to just take off. Now he's thinking, oh, maybe I'm going to try to get out. Just run. I don't know how many times I've watched his games, and I'm yelling at the screen, run, goddammit, run. And he's over there hesitating and doing all kinds of bullshit. And the team sucks. And then, of course, now they're dropping some major passes, too. So that's that. And then the Colts, who are taking a step back because they lost, believe it or not, Jones. They were on a run. And in the last few weeks, they've been looking a little shaky. And, the Seahawks, of course, is across the divisions. But the Seahawks are playing good football. The Seahawks they're in Seattle. They could lose that game pretty much. So their positioning will get worse if they lose their game. So these are my top five. What's yours? I looked at some of these other games. I don't care about the Titans and the 49ers. The Vikings and the Cowboys should be a good game because they both need to win. Right, the Dolphins and the Steelers need to win to stay up at the top. But I think it's a good chance the Bengals are going to beat the Ravens. It's a good chance the Bengals could win that game. So and if the Steelers get a 2-game lead over the Ravens are done. They're done. The Raiders and the Eagles, the Cardinals and the Texans should win that game. The Browns and the Bears should win that game. The Panthers and the Saints, well, it's kind of like a who cares, but the Panthers should win. So we went over the Lions, the Colts, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs, okay, they already lost the chance and opportunity to win the division for the first time in 9 years. I got a little bit more about that coming up. So they lose this game, they're effectively completely out. They might not be mathematically eliminated, but for all intent and purposes, they're out of the playoffs. The Bills and the Patriots, even if the Bills win, they're still going to be 1 full game behind the Patriots. But the Patriots, if the Patriots win, they're going to pretty much lock that division up. With a few games left, I'd be really surprised if they lose 3 games in a loss column. Just to solidify that. If you can see this, right? Patriots are 11-2. All right. So if the Patriots win that game, the Bills are not winning that division, right? We could pretty much safely say that. So let's continue. All right. So this, I'm gonna click on this link and we're gonna listen to some folks talk a little bit about the playoff picture. And I'm probably play around 3 minutes of this, so you guys can check out some intelligent people talking about football.
As we do every week, it is playoff picture time here on Chat Sports. We are entering week 15, fresh off of a wild, ugly, call it what it was, Monday night football game between the Eagles and the Chargers. Chargers came out on top. This is where things sit. Denver has taken back the number 1 seed from the Patriots, who were on bye. The Jags now have the lead in the AFC South. The Steelers have the lead again in the AFC North. A lot of movement on the AFC side. Chargers have the 5 seed. That was a massive win for them. The Bills have the 6th spot. Houston has the tiebreaker advantage over Indy as everything seems to fall apart for the Colts.
Well, listen, I tell you what. Besides the divisions, even the don't count the Texans out. They can still challenge for a division. They can still challenge. So they're not that far out. They might not win it, but they can still challenge. They're playing decent football with their quarterback back and looking pretty healthy. So, the playoff pictures, getting pretty exciting. And as we get close to the end of the season, those are divisional games. They're going to be matchup. And a lot of divisional games, like Steelers and the Ravens, have another game to play. So it's interesting times ahead.
3, 6, and 7 teams still technically alive. 1 not as much so. Ravens, Chiefs, and Dolphins. Bengals not out of it yet. In the NFC, the Rams maintained that number 1 seed. The Packers jump all the way up to number 2 with their win over the Bears. The Bears slide down to 7, by the way. Eagles reeling, having lost 3 straight games. Tampa looking a little bit shaky as well, have the tiebreaker for now over the Carolina Panthers.
So even the Eagles, for example, looking pretty shaky. They're probably not going to lose a division to Dallas. So whatever cobwebs they have, they can't rest on their laurels, but they at least have the division. So they're not going to fall any further. They're getting that first round game at home because they have the division. Now, they're probably they're not going to win the NFC conference. I don't think they're going to overtake the Rams. All right, because they're not playing that well, to tell you the truth. The Seahawks have a better team. So it's going to depend on, what the matchups are against these wild card teams. Because I think the Seahawks can upset all the division winners, all of them, even the Rams, right? And San Francisco, it's funny. They have a great record, but I'm not so sure they're playing all that well. And Chicago, they shit the bed a couple of times, but their team is not bad. It's not bad. So I like the way the NFC is kind of looking up, and all the teams that needed to be eliminated are gone. So it should be an interesting thing. Now, Carolina is a surprise by still being in the hunt this late in the game, but that's what makes football great. Any given Sunday.
Seattle and San Francisco, the other teams currently in. Lions, Panthers, Cowboys, and technically the Vikings also still alive. We're going to go in depth on all of these teams and break down what clinching scenarios we finally have this week at long last. If you want weekly playoff picture videos, though, show it by liking today's video, please, and thank you. All right, let's begin with the AFC, and we'll go with the top teams here and work our way down. We have a clinching scenario at long last for the Denver Broncos. They had maybe a bit more dominant than the final score indicates win over the Las Vegas Raiders. The games left here: Packers, Jags, Chiefs, and Chargers. Not an easy slate of games for Denver. What they have to do is win against the Packers, and they will at minimum lock up a playoff spot. Even if they don't win, the scenarios in which they get left out are really, really, really unlikely. So Denver is win and in the playoffs. But there is a losing scenario as well we'll get to later on. The Patriots also at 11-2. Same exact thing, except they would clinch the AFC East if they beat the Bills. They'd obviously clinch a playoff spot as well, but they would automatically win the division because they knock the Bills down a peg as well. That would at least secure the number 3 seed, by the way, for the Patriots. The 1 and 2.
Yeah, but that's winning a division is what you want to do. You win a division, you're in the playoffs, and you got a home team, a home game, right? So And I tell you what, they could beat Buffalo. I mean, Buffalo is up and down, but they can't sleep on that particular game.
Two still in play, but at minimum, they would be locking up the number 2 seed or number 3 seed by beating the Bills. The Patriots and Broncos also get in with this specific losing scenario. If they don't win their games, they would still clinch a playoff spot if the Colts lose and the Texans lose. So that's all they really need on terms of the bonuses to get in if they do not win this week.
I mean, it's possible, but you could almost bank on the Colts or the Texans winning it. If they both lose, I could dig it. But I'm thinking they can't count on that scenario.
Patriots and Broncos are in the pole position for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Not necessarily a lock, though. Who gets it? B for the Broncos, P for the Patriots, O for somebody else altogether. Let me know in the comments of today's show.
I think the Broncos get it.
Number 3 team, the Jacksonville Jags. They are moving on up. They've been on a bit of a heater. The Trevor Lawrence Jags offense under Liam Cohen starting to click. 2 extremely winnable games. The Jets, the Colts now without Daniel Jones, and Tennessee making only 3 winnable games there. 97% chance to make the playoffs. Most years, 10 wins get you in. Not a lock this year because there's 8 teams with already at 8 wins, but, probably going to win enough tiebreakers to get them in if they only finish with the 10-win side. Number 4, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Week 14 win over the Baltimore Ravens. They basically flipped their playoff odds with what it was for the Ravens. 66% now on that front. They've got games against the Dolphins, very winnable. The Week 18 game against the Ravens still potentially looms large. The Lions game is going to be tough with the Browns as well. Pittsburgh is now back in that pole position for the...
Well, see, now Pittsburgh has to hope that they can get another game in hand over Baltimore before that Baltimore game, right? Because I know what Tomlin's going to do too. If they need to rest the quarterback and they don't need this game because the division is locked up because they got a 2-game in the loss column league when this game happens, which is really possible, right? Because I think they're going to talk about Baltimore too. Now, Pittsburgh just needs a win. Let's just say they're going to lose to Detroit, okay? So that's 1 loss. But if they beat Miami and Cleveland is a losable game as well. But if they beat Miami and Cleveland, when we look at Baltimore's schedule, Baltimore is set, to maybe lose 2 more games, right? So if Baltimore goes, 1-2, and the Ravens go, not the Ravens, and Pittsburgh goes 2-1, they're in. And so that last game against Baltimore is not going to be that relevant. They'll probably sit, the old man.
AFC North. The Chargers are next up here, coming off a Week 14. That was an ugly win. That was disgusting. 3 turnovers in one play is hilarious, by the way. But they now kind of control their own destiny a bit more here. The schedule's not easy. Chiefs, Cowboys, Texans, and Broncos are all still technically alive in the playoff hunt. But if they were to beat the Chiefs on the road, that would do wonders for their playoff hopes and low-key kind of knock the Chiefs out of it altogether. We'll talk about them here in a little bit. The Bills, 96% chance, in part because the schedule is a little bit easier. They don't play 4 teams that are fighting for their playoff lives. They play 2. The Browns and Jets are essentially being viewed in terms of like the playoff picture stuff, essentially being viewed as an auto win.
Right.
Which reasonable as far as
you can't argue.
So the Bills in a solid spot with that comeback crazy win over the Bengals. Today's NFL Daily is made possible by Ethos. As a father of 2 kids, it's not fun to think about what would happen if something happened. Their team heating up at the right time. The Houston Texans, big win over the Chiefs that really put them in the driver's seat, so to speak, in the AFC South. The Chiefs have so many tiebreakers that go against them, by the way. Schedule's not that hard. Cardinals, Raiders, 2 very winnable games. We'll get to the Colts here as well in Week 18. Tough one against the Chargers. Houston, though, the offensive line doing just enough to not be terrible, put them in a better spot. The Colts, 8, and man, I feel bad for Indy. The season is collapsing upon them, and it's not even all their fault. Like you go all in, you make the trade for.
You listen. The Colts could lose all 4 of these games. the Colts could actually lose the last 4 games. And you know, they might even be underdog in God, maybe 3 out of those 4 games. They just lost to Houston, right?
Sauce Gardner. It was expensive. That's a valid complaint, but you didn't think Sauce was going to get hurt. You didn't think Daniel Jones was going to get hurt and then tear his Achilles. And now your 2025 and 2026 season is on the brink, and you play 4 teams down the stretch that are still in the playoff hunt. So I feel bad for Indy because this could really get away from them real fast. Let's go to the Ravens. That loss against Pittsburgh was bad, and now they are in a precarious spot. 33% playoff probability. They couldn't afford to lose some of these earlier games in this little run to make the playoffs because they got the Bengals, cool, but then they have the Patriots, Packers, and Steelers, and they don't technically have to win out because they're only a game back of Pittsburgh.
They got to win out, man. Don't be saying that. They got to win out.
Might drop a game or two, but you really need to start winning games. I don't think you're going to get in with 9 losses in the AFC North.
I mean, you know what? I think he's soft shoot the fact. I think if they lose to Cincinnati, I believe that they're going to be out of the playoffs. It's as simple as that. Not technically, but they're going to be looking up, and I think their game is bad already. I think it's just going to get worse. I think some of their players are going to just quit. It looks like some of those games look like they just quit. They look like a bad team right now. They don't look like a good team. And Lamar, I got to say, he's playing like shit.
Pretend the Chiefs, it might be over already. They are in a very bad spot right now. The schedule isn't crazy hard. They got games against the Titans and the Raiders, but this is a must-win game against the LA Chargers. There are a ton of elimination scenarios for the Kansas City Chiefs. The simplest of which to mention are they lose, the Jags win, the Bills win, and then essentially they win, or Chiefs lose, Jags, Bills, Colts, Texans, 2 of those 3 teams all lose a game. Like it's not good for the Chiefs. Like there is a scenario if they lose against the Chargers in which they are eliminated this week from the playoff line. Now it requires a Bills win or a Colts win for at least one of those. It seems unlikely, but they're in a bad spot if the Texans, Jags, Bills, and Colts keep on winning. So will the Chiefs and the Ravens miss the playoffs? I think that's a possibility right now.
Yes, it's one of my questions. It's more than a possibility. If I had to bet, both of those teams are going to miss the playoffs. It's going to be, it's going to be a big conversation. So I like this guy's wrap up. He does a good job. So I need to put his channel in the description box. But fair use. But the point really is, I believe both the Chiefs and the Ravens are going to lose. All right. So what have we got here? What's next? And here we are. We're talking about the Chiefs, right? The Chiefs are officially out as AFC West champions for first time in 9 years. First time in 9 years. It doesn't really seem that long, but yeah, they're out. They're shit out of luck. So there you have it. There you have it. Those guys are out. They could win out. Maybe they might surprise us, but I just think that they're not playing that good football. And I think the teams that are hungry are going to beat them. Right? So their streak is already over as AFC West champions. And I think that they're going to be able to just go home and get some rest and find some new players. And wow. I mean, it has to happen, right? The shit has to cycle. All right. So college football, so I like this young guy. We'll talk about the bowl games because there's a lot of bowl games. I used to live for the bowl games. Now there's so many of them that, I just kind of wait for the bowl games that are associated with winning the championship. And since they even expanded the championship, I'm not even really that excited about college football, right? Because they're going to keep expanding that shit, because of money. And it's just going to be like some mini NCAA bullshit, right? Oh man, 4 teams are not enough. Now we have whatever they have, right? 12 teams, 8 teams, or whatever, 10 teams, some shit like that. So, and we're going to talk about that next. So let's just hear a little bit of this.
College football's postseason is here, and for the majority of teams, they're playing in bowl games, not the college football playoff. So let's go through and rank every single non-playoff bowl game, starting at 35 through 31. We've got a Sun Belt rematch in the Birmingham Bowl that's hard to get up for, a couple of bizarre geographical matchups that probably won't generate a ton of bad blood, and just a bunch of games that don't have as much intrigue as some of the other bowls. At 30 through 21, we've got some bowl games that carry a little bit more weight and intrigue, like Missouri State's first bowl game. We've got some power conference teams like Northwestern, Minnesota, Louisville, NC State that are playing some quality group of 5 competition. Washington State, Utah State is a future Pac-12 battle. Old Dominion, South Florida would be a lot more intriguing if some of their key players hadn't already entered the portal, like Colton Joseph. And I do actually like UNLV in Ohio, Troy, Jacksonville State, Western Kentucky, Southern Miss, some high-caliber group of 5s going at it. Moving on to 20 through 11, there's some games to really like here. Rice, Texas State, a battle within the state of Texas. Penn State, Clemson is a battle between 2 programs and fan bases that are still very passionate despite down years. East Carolina loves the opportunity against Pitt to get another power conference win in a bowl game. Kennesaw State's first bowl against the MAC champions is going to be cinema. I love when 2 conference champions battle. UConn Army should be a ton of fun. I love the matchup of Navy, Cincinnati, 2 teams that are going to be playing for a lot. San Diego State, North Texas is 2 really solid group of 5 teams. LSU, Houston in the Texas Bowl should be a ton of fun. Boise State, Washington brings some bad blood in LA. And then Wake Forest, Mississippi State is pretty cool. I'd love to see Mississippi State getting to a bowl game despite being 5-7. Getting into the top 10, the Hawaii Bowl is what bowl season's all about. A battle in Hawaii with the Rainbow Warriors against Nick Rolovich, their former head coach and a Hawaiian quarterback for Cal. That's going to be cinema. Virginia, Missouri gets a ton of points for being a battle between 2 schools that really value this game. The winner of the Gator Bowl will have a ton of pride in that win. Nebraska, Utah, and the Las Vegas Bowl should be a ton of fun. There's some pressure on Rule to have a strong finish to the season after a rough month of November. And for Whittingham, this could be his last game at Utah. The Holiday Bowl should be a ton of fun between a couple of offenses that can really get after it. Should be high scoring. The Sun Bowl should be a great time for a Sun Devils team that will rally around their head coach and a Duke team that is the ACC champions looking to end the season on another win. The Alamo Bowl may have 100 points scored, and it's a very aesthetically pleasing matchup between USC and TCU. Seeing Josh Heupel and Brett Bielema go head-to-head in the Music City Bowl should be a ton of fun. It's 2 head coaches that hate to lose. What makes the ReliaQuest Bowl appealing is that Iowa and Vanderbilt are both really good teams that are fully invested in this game and winning the game, ending the year with a bowl victory. Meanwhile, the Citrus Bowl is a battle between 2 mega brands in college football, Texas and Michigan. Both are still going to come out with a ton of pride trying to win this bowl at the end of the season. But number 1 has to be the Pop-Tarts Bowl. The presentation that they have accomplished and the marketing in this game, on top of the fact that they have 2 extremely motivated teams looking to cap off great seasons with a win, I mean, it's just incredible stuff. All
right, so bowl games. You know, a lot of them overlap each other once you get into bowl season. But how many bowl games are you going to watch? You know what I'm saying? Like, so once they got so watered down like that, I just said, you know, let me just watch the bowl games that are associated with the championship. That's enough college football for me, right? Some of these other bowls, I mean, I'm old enough to see when it started getting saturated this way, just bowl game after bowl game. And anybody who has some money to advertise a business, you know, bribe that, you know, even losing teams to play in a bowl game, right? You know, so the big controversy that we're not talking about is that, you know, Notre Dame got snubbed for the champion, you know, for the playoffs. And they turned down their bowl game. They said, you know, and, you know, so the bowl is saying, even if you ain't going to the playoffs, the Notre Dame name, you know, is a brand worth paying for in a bowl game. And Notre Dame said, listen, man, you know, since we got snubbed based on some bullshit, we ain't playing at all. You know, I'm not going to put my players up to get hurt or anything like that in just a bowl game that's meaningless. If we ain't going for a championship, we ain't playing. And that's exactly what they did. And this ball whirled into some kind of, you know, hissy fit and that kind of shit. So a loser, this and that. But I understand where they're coming from, right? I mean, I understand exactly where they're coming from. And you know what? They just took their basketball and football and went home. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the playoff. And here's the brackets, right? You know, you're going to see that Notre Dame ain't there.
You agree with it or not, the college football playoff is set. And what is going to happen really is anyone's guess. So
all right, so let's just stop it there so you can get a look at it, right? You know, they got it ranked, from 1 to 12. So it's 12 teams. This 12 teams. Come on now. When are they going to try to expand it to 16? Right? How long do you think it's going to take before they try to expand this shit to 16 teams? If they can, or find a way to make a playoff with 16 teams. The football season is going to go into March or some shit like that, right? So, I mean, it was 4 teams, and I think they raised it just 18 before, and now it's 12 teams. 12 teams, and money talks, and everybody, and these guys, if you can fill your coffers, and they can find a way to schedule it, they're gonna expand this shit ad infinitum. So there's some controversy about the seating and things of that nature. So a little bit about what the lady has to say, and we'll go from there.
Try to get an idea here. The road to the Natty over the next, we're December 9th. It's like a month and a half.
10 days.
Okay, we're going to go with that. It'll be a very interesting month and a half. We have Mackenzie Brooks here, betting expert. So you've been crunching the numbers. Your team is in it.
Yes.
My team is in it.
Yes.
The only way we would meet is in the national championship. I don't have that much of a faith in my side of things. Let's start with the easiest path. What is the easiest path here to the Natty?
Well, you're talking about the Georgia Bulldogs here, and it's interesting because now last season, we didn't have 3 seeding, right? So there were sometimes maybe the 5 seed looked like they had a way easier path than even the 1 seed, right? We saw the 1 seed had to go face Ohio State and Tennessee, and then they got the doors blown off them with Oregon. So this year there's reseeding. A lot of those issues are solved, but not completely. Like, I'm looking at that 3 seed where Georgia's sitting, and they have a higher % chance to make the national championship than the 1 seed Indiana. We give Georgia around a 20% chance. We give Indiana around a 17% chance. So I'm trying to start to think, is that just a coincidence here? So then we start swapping in other teams into that 3 seed, right? If we move Ohio State from the 2 seed to the 3 seed, their chances go up 6%. So clearly there is this correlation of that 3 seed looking like a pretty spot to be, and it makes sense. Tulane, Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffinless, Ole Miss, regardless of what you get from that matchup, you're going to get a team that's going through coaching changes here. So we give Georgia a 62% chance to beat Ole Miss if it is Ole Miss at the end of the day. But look at those other top 4 seeds with buys. I understand Alabama and Oklahoma don't look like the best teams right now, but at their ceiling, at their peak, they could beat anybody. I'm telling you right now. That Oklahoma defense could. Texas Tech having to play Oregon. That doesn't look that promising. Ohio State having to get a red-hot Miami, angry Miami potentially, or Texas A&M, an 11-1 SEC team. So I'm looking at that 6-11. The model's looking at that 6-11 and saying.
There you go. So she's saying it, even with the reseeding, wherever you fell on that thing, some people just happy to be in it. But here's my thing that negates all the stuff that she's talking about, right? If you're going to be a champion, you have to beat everybody. It doesn't matter whether the game is harder or not. If you're a champion, you want the hardest road, so nobody can say, hey, man, if only I had that game. Champions have to beat everybody who comes to the table. That's just as simple as that. And it don't have to be fair either. If you're going to, you have the hardest road to get there. When you get there, if you get crowned the champ, you're crowned the champ, and nobody can say anything. So there's no woe is me in this business. Okay, so that's that. All right, so the NBA, right? So here's the standings. The Thunder is still a team, man. They're playing. There are some hungry young cats. So the Thunder is still, unbelievable. Only 1 loss this late in the season. None of this shit about, I need to rest and all of this kind of stuff, load management and all that. Ups and downs, away games, back-to-backs, all that stuff. They still only have 1 loss. They're not quite half the season. They're in the in-season tournament and all that kind of stuff. But I'm sure they got a goal to try to win that. So does the Lakers. And we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA Cup, coming up. But the West is always tough. The Warriors are still on the inside looking, not on the outside, but they're still looking in. They're in the in-season, not in-season tournament, but they're going to be in the round robin for the playoffs, anywhere from 7 to 10, right? You're going to have to go through all of it to get your last 2 spots, if they stay there. And their team is shaky at best. I think Curry is a little hurt, and he's a little long in the tooth. So their team is older, but everybody still wants to see them play. The Lakers are looking good, and old man LeBron, I want him to retire so, the league can breathe and expand without mentioning his name every 2 minutes. And all of the talking heads are going to have to talk about something else other than what's going on with the Lakers and LeBron. The Pistons are a big surprise. I'm kind of surprised at the Knicks following up last year with another good year so far. So that's good. They need the Celtics are doing better than people gave them credit for. My man Brown is carrying the team. Some of the players are carrying the team with Jason Tatum gone for the entire year. They ain't going to win anything, but for them being in third place, even this first quarter of the season, is pretty impressive. Whereas the Sixers and the Bucks and some of the other teams, Cleveland, for example, have fallen off. So there you have it. Indiana, they lost their guy, and they're, they was on a shit heap for a second. So anyway, so that's that. So the NBA Cup, and there's some conversation whether the NBA Cup is something people like. I know I do. I think the NBA Cup is good. All right, so the Knicks won their game, so it's one and done, right? It's a one-game elimination. The semifinals are on the 13th, so there's some games tonight, right? The Thunder Sun game has already started, I believe, or right at tip-off. I'm gonna try to catch that once I'm finished here in the next half hour or less. And then the Lakers, I'll probably stay up late to see how they look. If the Lakers, if the game is competitive, then it's going to be a late night. It's going to be a late night if the game is competitive. I'm going to stay up and watch it and see, because LeBron wants to win another one. You know how he trophy chases. Maybe everybody should be championship chasing. But I know he was happy as hell to win the first championship of the NBA Cup and the first MVP. Now, I have a guy who thinks that's equivalent to a championship for the season, and I said, no, not necessarily. That's not the same as a championship ring for the whole season, but it's close, because in basketball, winning championships, winning trophies, no matter at what level, is a big thing in basketball or any sport. But in basketball, I remember just trying to win a tournament so we can get shirts was a big thing. Up in the park, you got free shirts and, just the accolades and some of the admiration of the honeys around the place, man. So winning the championship in any sport is big, but in basketball, since everybody can see your face and know who you are, unlike football, it has, and because it's a lot more intimate with the crowd. I think that's because I think that's the way people look at basketball. All right, so the NBA Cup is a good idea, and I'm glad. The one good thing that the commission and those guys came up with. You could complain about a lot of other things, but that's a pretty good thing. Right, so I found this little chart, or this little graphic, not even a graphic, about the end is near for all these players. And I'm one of the kind of guys who, especially LeBron, he could still play. He'll probably be able to get you 20 points when he's 50 years old. But is that good for the NBA? Because right now he's just chasing, records that kind of don't mean anything anymore. So he just had a big streak that was of 10 points per game, like 1,200 games with 12 points with 10 points or more in a row. He had more 10-point games in a row than most players. I think the vast majority of players have played the game. There's a lot of players. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 players who played more than 1,200 games, period. So, Chris Paul, it's time for him to go out into the sunset, man. Enjoy your money and wealth. These are the guys who are not going to go broke, right? Because they made hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. And I think they're better stewards of their cash. Like Russell Westbrook, why come back? Even though you can still play and you're going to have your moments, why come back, man? Just, I don't know what financially you have to go. I mean, sometimes it's hard to just leave $7, $8, $10 million on the table, no matter how much money you have. And I think there's some of that going on. Steph Curry is a $500 million man. He's got a wife that people thinks that doesn't love him. And maybe he's sticking around because maybe the inevitable might happen once he's home every day. KD, the Mr. Troll in Chief himself, his better days are gone. So look at the Beard, who continually disappears when it counts, but he's great. And Draymond Green, the only reason why we're talking about him is because he's on the Warriors. I don't think his career would have been anything the way it is right now if he wasn't on the Warriors. Maybe that's not fair to him, but I think that's true. And of course, Dame Dollar. I think he was having a decent season when he got hurt, but, big divorce with the wife. And, so is he sticking around because she, beat him down for half of his wealth? Maybe. And then, of course, they're trolling LeBron James' son, who probably shouldn't be in the NBA at all. And he's only there because of LeBron. But nobody's getting on Giannis's brothers for being, on the Milwaukee bench because they want to entice Giannis. So that's the way that works. But the Lakers are a bunch more visible, and everybody knows what it is. So it really wasn't fair to Bronny James. It really was. As a man, his life is not going to be defined as to whether he could play in the NBA or not. Just because he's LeBron's son. So I think some of this hurt him. And I think too many people have come down so hard on this guy just because they hate LeBron, that it's rubbing off on this guy. And he's done nothing to deserve the punishment that he gets verbally from so many people. And, that's just the way I see it, so. But when LeBron's gone, he's gone. Everybody knows that, right? Everybody knows that. And maybe that's why LeBron's sticking around. Who knows? Rest in peace to Eldon Campbell. Passed away. He's still pretty young. I say pretty young man. He's in his 50s. And he had a decent NBA career. It was 15 seasons. Now, they didn't pay these guys the kind of money that they pay them now. But, spending, 15 seasons in the NBA is more than just a drink of water. Right? It's more than just a drink of water. So he had a decent career. So rest in peace. The Big Easy, Big E, passed away. So God rest his soul. All right, a little bit for those who are hockey fans. I really don't go into hockey, but here's the standings just in case. You want to say, this guy's leaving out hockey. He's a racist. You don't like white players. I'm only joking. I'm from the New York area, man. We used to, I used to go to Islander games a lot. And I remember the Devils being such a great team back in the day, So, of course, the Rangers were the Rangers. So, and everybody was happy when they won that one championship. So, hockey is great. And my high school we had a great hockey team. Not just a good one, a great one. Cardinal Hayes, look it up. Look it up. Back in the day, 1,000 years ago when I was a young man. I didn't play, by the way. I just knew a lot of the players, of course. All right. Well, so this is other banter, so we're coming down to the home stretch, and one of my boys he said he was going to show up, but I know he if I don't remind him, he doesn't show up. That's okay. Now this is Shaq bear hugging a married woman, and if you read a bunch of her thing, she welcomes the bear hug. Now we don't need to read anything more into it. I just think the question is that how would you feel if your wife was, okay with another man just rubbing up against her and shit? You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is not just like a hello handshake. I mean, he's bear hugging her ass, and she looked like she got a nice ass. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're insecure and all that. It has nothing to do with that. Nobody. Most men are possessive of the women in their lives. It's just a natural order of things, right? And you kind of don't want your woman smiling and being happy that some fucking guy has her all cuffed up. So it's not having. So even if you was insecure, you got a right to be. Not because Shaq is taking it in the back room and knocking it out. It's that you don't want your wife so happy to have another man fucking hugging her. And that's not too much to ask. Depends on what kind of man you are as a husband. I would tell my wife, how would you feel if I got a woman in a bear hug and I got my Johnson right up against her ass? How about that? Is that all right? Is that okay? Anyway, so mountains out of molehills. That's what I just did was making a mountain out of a molehill. Okay, and it felt good. It felt good to make a mountain out of a molehill on that one because it ain't my wife, right? But I wouldn't have liked it. I wouldn't like it. So Shedeur Sanders is playing good football, right? So it begs the question on why. First of all, he should have never fell back that much. And the untold story about it is that the NFL owners hate Deion Sanders so much that they colluded to not draft his son. Is there any doubt that that's what they did? Is there any doubt? And why do they hate Deion Sanders that much? When he played, he elevated the NFL. He was must-see TV. He put butts in the seat. Is it just because he was another arrogant black man? Do white men hate arrogant black men that much? They hate Shedeur Sanders because he's an arrogant man. That he's not a humble, step and fetch it. Let me pick some cotton for you like a Russell Wilson kind of guy. You know what I'm saying? And I'm saying, hey, listen, man, all you wanted him to do was play football, and you got to have some kind of edge on you to be a quarterback in the NFL. I don't care what kind of edge it is. You got to have some kind of edge. So that's his. Now, he's a decent quarterback. We don't know how good he's going to be. We have fucking guys like Stephen A. Smith saying that his whole career is based on his next game. He said that on one of his first take, and Dan Orlovsky said, come on, Stephen A., you sound crazy. How could just because this guy, his career is game to game as a rookie, how can that be? How can that be? So now the coach who hates his gut, and that's what happened to Vince Young, by the way. Vince, what's his name? The coach of Vince Young, Fisher, he hated Vince Young so much that he ruined his career. Well, Vince Young ruined his own career, but he could have been great, but his coach hated his guts. His coach hated him. And I don't know what it feels like if you're a young man, even if you're a knucklehead, knowing that the guy who's supposed to mentor you hates your freaking guts. And Coach Fisher hates. And we know that Vince Young played one of the greatest college football games ever against USC. And when he got to the pros, he won some big games in his first few years. He just needed to grow up. He needed to grow up. And his coach didn't have any patience for his immaturity. And that means that's bad leadership on a coach, right? I mean, that's because, you know what? You say he's supposed to have all that maturity. Well, not necessarily, because it depends on what kind of upbringing you had. And he's a typical black guy who was probably coddled his whole life, and he needed some lessons. But the lessons you needed to teach him shouldn't have been in front of a national goddamn audience. So here's Shedeur Sanders, a coach Stefanski hates his guts, and it's not clear why. The owner gets him, the coach doesn't want him to own, and he's and now they got a 50 or 45 million a year guy who can't get past having happy endings with strippers, right? And he's sitting on the bench just lapping it up. Now he's married, supposedly. I think he got a new wife. But, you got to pay him, right? You got to pay the guy. You still got this quarterback. So can Shedeur Sanders actually take over the team when you got a guy making $45 million sitting on the bench, 80% of your salary cap? So he's got to play next year. Right? Not Shedeur, but Watson. He's got to play. So, Sanders got to be traded. And they spent so much time devaluing his worth that they can't really get what they deserve for him. Because I think if he goes to a team with a favorable coach and the right kind of thing, he can actually be a really, really good quarterback, maybe even a great one in the NFL. He's got great accuracy. He really does. He's not a bad guy. He's just arrogant, and I don't see why that should hold. Anybody should hold that shit against him, like the news media and assholes like Stephen A. Smith, or that really sycophantic C word with the O's in it, Jason Whitlock, who hates Deion Sanders with a passion. So he hates his son too. Go figure. Go figure. So anyway, I think he's gotten the starting role for the rest of the year, so they say, and we'll see how he pans out. He's a decent quarterback. Browns ain't going nowhere. Just play him. Just play him. Just play him. So they say they got a whole bunch of boxing names coming up, and I was going to play this clip, but I'm not. But Abdullah Mason is one of the best boxing names out there. So I think that if there's any one of these guys that if you're into boxing or looking at boxing in the future, go through YouTube and search on Abdullah Mason. Just search on him, okay? If you like little guys, Inoue is another guy to just search on his matches. But Abdullah Mason is going to be a great boxer, and it'll be nice to see this guy in his fruition. And you know what? So we got a couple of, I think boxing is coming back. I think Dana White is starting to get into the boxing realm. And if he gets his headway into boxing, we're going to start seeing the best fighters fight each other. And that's what we really need to see. Better matchups, and guys not thinking that if I lose a fight, I'll never make any more money. That's just bullshit. You need to be out there fighting. The best need to be fighting the best so we can get quality out there. We can't even get like the great trilogies that we've seen before, right? We need some of that. Canelo, for example, spent his whole career ducking, my man from who moved up. Now, why his name? I got his name somewhere, and I gotta say his name now. What's his name? Did I lose it? Did I get rid of it? Damn it! And I had my boxing thing up there. I took it down, but what I was saying is that in the boxing realm, what's his name? That everybody keeps ducking. He moved up to light heavyweight. Well, I can't find his name. And I feel sorry that I'm getting like a damn brain fart on my man's name. I think you guys, he's a light heavyweight now. a Spanish dude, man. He's unbelievable. And Canelo spent his whole career ducking him. So some of you guys might already know who I'm talking about, even though I can't remember like a fool. I had a boxing list up here. Well, anyway, I have my little general questions that I probably covered already. I think Shedeur Sanders should leave Cleveland and find another place to go. His trade value has been trashed, but maybe in the next 3 or 4 games, it'll get elevated. And he should leave and leave Cleveland to their own devices with Watson. And I think Watson is washed up, and he got the worst contract in football. And hopefully, he does well by his money. I'm not so sure he will, because I don't know what he got away from his sexual affliction with having women giving him happy endings. Almost destroyed his career, not as a football player, but as a man. Tomlin, just a question for you guys out there if you're listening. Does he have to win? Does he have to win the Super Bowl to keep his job? Or is getting to the AFC Championship enough? I know if he loses and he doesn't get into the playoffs, I think he's done. If they somehow fumble the bag and don't make the playoffs, I think he's done. I really do. And then if he gets to the playoffs, how far does he have to go? I think he has to at least win the first game, no matter what. You're going to have a home game. You got to win that game. But does he have to compete in the AFC Championship to keep his job, or is it still too late? Does he have to just win it all? And even if he wins it all, would that be the right time for them to say, okay, you got another championship, but this team needs another voice for the future? We'll see. But he's on thin ice. There's no doubt about it. I know the ownership crew is very loyal to their coaches, head coaches. So that's why he hasn't been fired, a long time ago. So there you have it. All right. And remember, this came up on a video I had. Do we think the Ravens and the Chiefs are going to miss the playoffs? This is number 3. Yeah, I think they're both going to miss the playoffs. I think the Chiefs, if the Chiefs lose this next game, there's just no way they're getting into the playoffs. And if the Ravens fall 2 games in the loss column behind Pittsburgh, where that last game becomes meaningless, then of course they're not going to win a wild card too. In that division is when you got to win the division to get in. You got to win the division to get in. And right now, Pittsburgh is in the driver's seat. And not only do I think the Ravens are going to get eliminated, I think that last game of the season against Pittsburgh is going to be rendered mute. I think it's going to mute or moot. Yeah, I think it's moot, M-O-O-T, moot. I just think it's going to be rendered moot because, and then, of course, Tomlin is going to rest, Aaron Rodgers and everybody else who's nicked up. They're not even going to play that game. So there you have it. And then the last one is more of a statement than a comment. Out of all the new boxes that are coming out, a lot of them, nobody knows their name. That's why I didn't even play that thing. I didn't feel like going through the 2 minutes or 3 minutes. I'll just tell you the one I think you need to look up. Go ahead, get on YouTube, punch in Abdullah Mason and watch he's like 21, 22 years old now. He's got maybe around 10 to 15 fights under his belt, and he's getting ready to move up into the bigger leagues in terms of competition. The guy is dynamite. The guy is absolute dynamite. So I'm pushing him. That's good. Watch I get him knocked out. But no, I think he's a young man. He's got power in both hands. He's fast. He moves. He got defense. He's in great shape. And I think he's the one I would like to watch. He's I was going to say he's well-spoken, but I don't know about well-spoken, but he can articulate a point, not full with crazy tattoos and all that kind of crazy shit. It seems like he has a decent head on his shoulders. So Abdullah Mason, that's who I say go check out. And we go down into the home stretch here. Hey, man, what's going on? Well, hey, man, what's up, 100? Where you been, brother? I think it's you, 100 Watts, man. Where you been, man? If you wanted to come up for a second, just say yeah, man. If you're the 100 Watts I'm talking about, I haven't seen you in a while, in a coon's age. You know, hopefully everything's going well with you and your family. Oh, man. You know, I'm sorry to hear that with you, or is that family stuff or what? You know, hopefully everything's cool, man, with the family. I know you made the big move out there and stuff like that. So hopefully, you know, you got a handle on it. You know, I probably need to go in the hospital myself, but I can't stand being inside one of those damn places, man. Jesus Christ. Jiminy Cricket, man. Hopefully your family is doing well. Maybe send me an email, say, let me know what's happening. You don't have to give me all the details, but hopefully everything's okay. I'm coming down to the home stretch here, and so let me go ahead and close this out. Folks, hit the like button for me, you know, 100 Watts, hit the like button, share. And at one point I started to just do this on replay, but I'm going back live like I used to on my other channel. You know, a couple of my boys, we were out having sushi today. They said they were going to show up, but they didn't. So I'm going to get on that case later on. Anyway, like, share, and subscribe. I'll be back here next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. This is my third season, second episode. So we're going to keep going. Copyright disclaimer. I use a lot of stuff. I really need to start to put their links in my description. So some of the aftercare, I think I'm going to go ahead and just start doing that so I can give people credit for the material that I use. And with that, you know, we're going to say goodbye, you know. All right, brother. Thanks for stopping by, even for a second, man. Hopefully everything is going better with your family. Like I said, every time at 7 o'clock, if you're cool, you know, I'll probably put you back if you want to. I could put you back on the list. If you ever want to come up and speak sports at one of these days, man, you know, just let me know and I'll let you come up. No problem. And if you get healthy enough, if it's you or your family, you know, I'm still doing the Monday show on Black Man Unfiltered, man. I'm all over the place with different topics. So you know about that. All right. Let me get out of here and hit the outro and say goodnight to everybody from the Swivel on the Sports Bar.
Grab your friends, it's time to play. Join the fun, we're here all day. Watch the game with drinks in hand. On the swivel, let's take a stand. On the edge of our seats, we live for the thrill. In this moment together, we're feeling the chill. So here's to the laughter as we gaze at the stars. We say goodnight from the swivel at the sports bar. In the flicker of the screens where our spirits ignite. It's time as we fade into light. Tasty bites and big screen thrills. Every moment gives you chills. High fives and cheers, it's quite a sight. Join the crowd, it feels so right. As the game goes on, our hearts beat as one. Memories in the making, oh, this night's just begun. So here's to the laughter as we gaze at the stars. We say goodnight from the swivel at the sports bar. In the flicker of the screens where our spirits ignite. Let's cherish this till light. So good night, my friends, till we meet again. In this world of the game, through thick and through thin.